welcome to the Muslim Street. Listen to a live broadcast of the Muslim Street, brought to you by the Lance Scurv Show, who is comfortably sectioned over in Accra, Ghana. Must be nice.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
We're also joined by Professor Viper Issa White, U.S. congressional candidate here in District 10 in Florida. That'll be Orlando. And also founding member of the National Black Media Coalition, National Black Association of Journalists, as well as the Darfur 23 co-convener Art Mobley is tuned in. We know Art always has the cool, Kango turned backwards. Where'd you grow up in, like Detroit? It must be a Detroit thing.
Yeah, that's a Detroit thing. It definitely is. Yeah.
So Art, you remember in Detroit in 1968? It was my first recollection. I'm a big baseball fan, right? The Tigers, the Cardinals. Yeah, Denny McClain, 31-6, going up against Bob Gibson, 24-9, 2 Cy Young winners. And the only time in Major League Baseball history that this has happened, where you have 2 Cy Young winners, National League and American League, and they also were MVPs of their respective leagues. Hadn't happened since. And in addition to that, what is fantastic about that series, because it's the first one I literally watched from start to finish. Tigers 1-7 was what happened that previous, I think somewhere around July, August, when Detroit had a major race riot.
Yeah, we had one of those every other year, But yeah, Marvin Gaye sang about that series. He said, "Will our ball club win the pennant? Do you think they have a chance?" Still hoping the Tigers would come back by 71. So
yeah, great. Hey, Professor White, we're talking baseball. I know it's a little bit over your head, bro.
Oh no! At those days, man, I was a big Yankees fan.
Yeah,
my grandfather had a flat in the Bronx, and we used to go to his balcony, and we'd turn on the video and watch the game from a distance, in the Bronx. So yeah, I know Lance know exactly what I'm talking about in the area. So the Yankees was everything. If the Yankees wasn't in the World Series, it wasn't no World Series.
Yeah, best team money could buy, the Yankees.
Yeah, every year.
So
great stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. So we got a hot topic today, and Art Mobley kind of chose this topic, and we're going to allow him to kind of take the lead on that. Before we jump into the topic, which is very timely, I want to, excuse me, there's something I posted on social media like Tuesday or Wednesday that is alarming, Dr. White. The United Arab Emirates, who have sided historically with the Zionist regime in so-called Israel, particularly on this war in Iran, when Israel, as well as the United States, co-attacked these innocent people. The Gulf states, who had military bases and have been supporting the Israelis and the Americans from a material as well as an immaterial perspective. Iran began to tear them apart. The UAE, also known as Abu Dhabi and Dubai, particularly Dubai, was built upon tourism, Dr. White. Bombs started flying, started fleeing, which meant that the whole economy has fell apart. In it falling apart, Dr. White, I read one note last week. They knew they were in trouble when 80% of the prostitutes left. And you know what? They went to Ukraine. That's where they were from. In addition to that, here's the report that came out last week that 80% of the hotels are empty.
Right.
They're shutting down. You can get a room at a 5-star hotel, a Hilton, and I priced this out myself just for shits and giggles, for $24 a night in Dubai. That's right down in Burj Khalifa. $24 a night. That's lower than the Red Roof Inn. That's 63rd Street in Austin. So the entire economy, which is built upon tourism, has fell apart. Trump now is threatening to go before, insinuating that he's going to go before Congress and ask for billions of dollars to bail out the Emiratis. Dr. Wade, we're going to start from there, and we'll flow into the topic.
Well, I mean, the United Arab Emirates and several other of the Gulf states, the economy is in shatters because of their standing with the United States, allowing the United States to have military bases. And of course, Iran saw this as legitimate targets. And they never thought that Iran would have the response that they did, and would be able to generate the hurt that it has done. So the question is that how will the United Arab Emirates and other Gulf states respond? And the response in that should be is that they should align with their cultural brothers and sisters of Iran, with their political brothers of Iran, and create a regional dynamic that would be of interest and protection for their own region, for their own societies, much like the EU and other areas. So I don't feel bad for the United Arab Emirates. I don't feel bad at all, because earlier they have sold out. They were more in line with Western ideas, and they have become a stooge, a puppet, a whore of the United States and Western society. So right now, I don't feel bad, but I do think that they have come to their senses, and that they will ultimately join forces in a united front that will protect their interest and the interests of their Gulf brothers and sisters in that region.
Yeah, one of the things that I like to make clear, having twice to the region, once in 2007 and another in 2019, where I spent extensive time in Dubai, in the Emirates. Particularly the statistics. People have a false impression of Dubai. They think that it's a Muslim country, and it's not. The Arab only makes up 17% of the country. Everybody is there, particularly upwards to 47% of the country is made up of Indian or Pakistani migrants who came there for cheap labor to build those tall buildings. Whoosh, up in the sky. Sheikh Mohammed in Dubai said, "I want the tallest hotel in the world." So he got the tallest Marriott, right? "I want the tallest Christmas tree in the world." It's not even this is a Muslim country. So you got the tallest Christmas tree in the world, right? So so on and so on. This other impression that I don't see personally, having visited the region and spent extensive time there, I don't see how they come back in that this is built upon tourism. One thing that I talked about, the prostitutes have left. They went back to Ukraine, 80% of them. They show you what was going on there. But secondly, as of, 3 weeks ago, the people or the organizations that were selling Dubai, infrastructure, selling condos, selling villas and all that kind of stuff for investment perspectives, they ain't selling it no more. They're selling the Maghreb. Literally, I'm getting calls, and I asked the people who were calling, you're building villas in Marrakesh in Morocco. I go, you have a Spanish name. I said, where are you? He says, Argentina. I said, but your phone number is in Dubai. So they've even shifted globally.
Well, I definitely don't have any tears to cry this morning for Dubai or Kuwait or Qatar or Bahrain or any of those sheikdoms that have been built in the Persian Gulf exclusively to extract oil and wealth away from Arabia, Iran, Iraq, and they've been doing it for years and getting away with it, U.S. financed, and a lot of their aristocracy over there buys into this particular structure because it gives them a chance to enrich themselves off of Western capital and to have banking structures in the area and other financial assets that allow them to just sponge off of what is naturally endowed to the area. In the meantime, Israel is plotting to build a greater Israel structure, which takes into its geographical area not only Palestine, but Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, a large part of Saudi Arabia. I'll get back to that. Part of Turkey, half of Iraq, and then back in the other direction, a significant portion of Egypt. And when you talk about the part of Saudi Arabia that they're taking, we know where Mecca is. We know where Medina is. Mm-hmm. Medina is actually encompassed in the Greater Israel Project and puts Mecca right on the border of that project. Now, you tell me what these people are plotting and what they have a design to do is not going to affect Islam. And, I don't see any other way that this is going to pan out.
But how about
it cannot happen. Go ahead.
How about Art? At the beginning, of course, prior to their attack on Iran, the greater Israeli project, yes, on the table. They never thought that they were going to get the response from Iran as they did get. So the question is the greater Israel project still on the table? Because one, we see that there is a exodus from Israel. Even many of the people in Israel are fed up and upset with Netanyahu. That along with that, we see that there is a gradual move of the Arab states that is being forced, not that they like it, but it's being forced to align with Iran because of circumstances. Then on top of that, you have that the general body of the world, the majority of the countries of the world have condemned Israel and that concept of the greater Israeli project. So the question again remains, is that still on the table and still achievable?
Well, of course.
Or is it the case whereby they had it, but now because of the pushback and how Tel Aviv is devastated, Jerusalem is devastated, Haifa is getting beat up, and several other countries and several other cities, and their economy right now is being tapered off. So the idea is that while that may be an emotional concept for them, it may not be really achievable unless they utilize some type of nuclear arms to win this conflict,
which they can't do. So,
all right, so it's still on the table. I mean, it's still achievable.
Yeah. So again, it's not off the table as far as they're concerned. And believe me, these people have historically been able to worm their way in, emote their way in, fungi growth their way into all kinds of situations throughout the world. And certainly now what we're looking at is right there in the middle of the Islamic cultural base. They have implanted this concept and this idea of this greater Israel project. First the Israel project, now the greater Israel project. And so their designs have been very, very grandiose.
Yeah, so the question we're dealing with today, Dr. White, from Art, what would the demise of so-called Israel mean to the Muslim world? I want to have you jump in, Dr. White, with this as a context, and that is if you listen to even the so-called critics now of Zionist Israel, they're pointing their criticism at Benjamin Netanyahu. They're literally attempting to separate the criticism of Zionist Israel from or to Benjamin Netanyahu, meaning that once he's gone, then everything's going to be okay. Well, 1948 is all I have to say. He wasn't around then. In fact, he was just born, Dr. White.
Well, again, historically, you're absolutely right. Well, one thing I want to go back, you said something earlier in your introduction in reference to the UAE not being a Muslim country. And I'm sorry?
I said that. I didn't say that.
Yes. And, while you may look at that in their actions, we cannot ignore the fact in their constitution, they put in concepts of Sharia law. 75% of their residents and citizens are Muslims, and they classify themselves as a Muslim country. So I would separate that from ideological practice as opposed to what's in their constitution. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Okay, let's just look at that. But
let me add some clarification, and maybe this will help.
Okay.
While there, and I spent extensive periods there, 2007 and again in 2019, what they have literally set up, the Emiratis, is something that's likened to or equivalent to a Jim Crow state vis-a-vis everybody else that went there, right? So they literally have a protective class of Arabs or Emiratis versus all the other people who are there. And particularly the largest segment of Muslims who are there, they're Pakistani and Indian, right? Those cousins, right? Who were brought there for cheap labor. You see where these kind of narratives are lining up with how capitalism works here and how it works there, right? Now let's talk about the Islamic feel of the place. Again, it's a Jim Crow state, and I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're standing in line, Dr. White. You're a Black Muslim from the United Snakes of America, and you stand in line to get you a sandwich. And there's an Emirati family standing in line before you. The wife, the husband, and the little 6-month-old baby who continues to smile at you as you standing behind. And you reach out, Dr. White, and you touch that little 6-month-old baby. Guess what? You're going to jail. And that's not something that I'm just making up.
No,
I'm part of that infrastructure. So when we talk about a Muslim country, when I say a Muslim country, I've been in Muslim countries before where the Sunnah of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is practiced, is felt, is even smelled in the air. Okay, I've seen it in the Sudan. I've seen it in Morocco. You've seen it in Senegal. 40% of Ghana, where Lance is. You can feel the Sunnah. You cannot feel any Sunnah in Dubai. But what you can feel is those 80% of those Ukraine prostitutes who've gone now because there ain't no money there. What you can feel is the hot girl trips that they've flown in with from all over the West, particularly here in the United States, who are flowing in there, bumping their booties and drinking and smoking and everything else. No Muslim country there.
I think that sometimes in law, we would declare that in legal terms is a de jure state. And that is by jurisprudence is a Muslim state, but by practice, de facto, by practice, it is not a Muslim state. And I think that's important to look at and to look at. It's like in the United States, we're supposed to have a democracy in many respects. By jurisdiction, yes, it's there, but by practice, we have a lot of questions upon.
Okay, I'll give you that.
But I think balkanization goes on in any area where they are attempting to keep people powerless. So you're going to see the fractionalization of the Arab community, like you see the fractionalization of the African community, the Latin American community, because it is an effort to keep those areas powerless. So again, we've been talking about this on the Muslim street for months and months, that the larger your geographical area is and contiguous that geographical area is, the more power you have. That's why we have the Russia and China and the US and Canada and Australia. Those are all the largest land masses in the world, Brazil, India. But when you get to Africa, the areas start to shrink, so the power shrinks. And in Latin America, the same thing. And then, of course, in the Arab world, you get Arabia and you get Iraq, and then you get all these spin-off little splinter countries like Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait. Those are efforts to break those areas up, and they want to break it up more. I mean, they're talking about going into Iran. If Israel had its way and the US had its way, they'd break it up to about 6 countries. You break it up and you splinter it, and that's what dissipates the power. And so consolidation is really important to do. But one other submission I would have is that we have to look back in history and realize where the strength of the Muslim world has come from. At one point, Palestine was the seat of the intelligentsia for the entire region. They had all of the universities, they had the hospitals, they had the institutions that gave the people structured learning, legal systems. A lot of the lawyers came out of there, but the most important elements in the Arab world were groomed in Palestine. And then when Palestine was broken up in 1948, those people dispersed to all capitals across the Muslim world. They were forced to. They had to leave. So they integrated into the governments, into the systems there, and a lot of the hierarchy in every structure, whether it's Arabia or it's Iraq or it's Iran or it's Turkey for that matter, these Palestinians merged into those countries and became really a powerful force. So you never were going to get rid of Palestine. Palestine was going to live on regardless, because the entire Muslim world is Palestine or became Palestine. So now you're looking at Israel. And I wish we could put some of the maps up. I sent some maps. I don't know if Lance is able to throw those up, but he can float those, as we're talking here, and it gives us a visual reference as well. But when you look at the state of Israel is very small compared to Iran. And when you talk about just ballistic missile targeting and being able to find targets in either area, certainly Iran's area of targeting strategic assets is much more widespread and much more dispersed than that little concentrated area that is Israel. I mean, Israel has one airport. The Ben Gurion airport is gone. It is absolutely in tatters. They have no way to even land and send planes out at this point, because it was one area. Meanwhile, Tehran has airports all over a much larger area. What is it, 100 and sometimes larger than Israel is geographically. So anyway, that's the strategic disadvantage, the geographical disadvantage that Israel has in the area. It's a very small area, very easy to target. All of their infrastructure is in 1 or 2 spots. As you said, Dr. White, they've been decimated. You mentioned Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and Haifa. Those areas have been heavily hit, and they can't take much more. All of the people are underground. They're in bunkers. They can't leave the country. They are in a state of siege, and they're waiting for the U.S. to come to their rescue. So we can continue on that, but this is Muslim Street, and you need to hit that like button and share this algorithm and our position with other listeners, and tell them about what we're doing here, and let them come on over. You see, we get a little interruption here and get broken up a little bit, but yeah, but this map in particular, those are U.S. bases that are flagged, and you see on the southern part of Iran, closer to Saudi Arabia, the Persian Gulf is there in the middle. Those were the flagged bases as they existed across the area before February the 28th, when the attack on Iran happened by the U.S. and Israel. The picture below shows the current situation. All those bases have been wiped out. All those bases are gone. And one of Iran's main demands right now is that they not return. If those bases don't return, how is the UAE, Oman, Iraq, Emirates, and Kuwait and Bahrain, how are they going to reestablish what they have? So they have no choice but to listen to Iran and allow Iran to take the lead. In the meantime, Iran is certainly not happy with Israel, and they're going to continue to punish Israel for what Israel did when it came, decapitated their leadership, killed families, targeted scientists, targeted every institution and system that they could within Iran, and on an effort to existentially destroy Iran. So Iran feels extremely threatened and will continue to feel extremely threatened as long as not only those bases are in the area, but as long as Israel is in the area.
I think your analysis is point on in many respects. However, I would say that this is not 1991 when you had Desert Storm, when you had the world, the UN supporting Israel, and then ultimately partitioning Iraq. The world is not with Israel and the United States on this one any longer. The United States is not the superpower as it was at that time. At that time, they titled themselves as the lone superpower in the world. That's not happening. Right now, the United States is running low on ammunition, and Israel, according to all reports, only have about 2 weeks left of ammunition. So therefore, and then on top of that, the United States is going through an economic downturn. I think last week you stated that we're headed towards a recession, if not a depression, I believe, Brother Arthur, you stated.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, all right.
I said
You said that. All right.
The proof lies in economic principles around the oil industry. Once a barrel gets to 120 here in the United States, recession, no problem out of that. 150, worldwide recession.
Yes. So with that taking place, Israel and the United States don't have no place to go. And then there's something else that must be looked upon. And that is countries like Yemen that has been under sanctions, and countries like Iran that has been under sanctions. Those two countries have shown the Middle East, the Gulf states, that there's life as sanctions is going on. Yes, it will be tough, but you look inward, you develop your ammunition, you develop a internal economy, and you can still grow. All right. So I think those things alone are showing the Gulf states that you do not have to be reliant on America for anything. Look within and look towards your brother. And I think those are two things that is oftentimes ignored in this.
Yes, yeah, that's a great point, Dr. White. But tell us and tell the audience. We want to encourage the audience to drop in with a question or two, and we'll address the Q&A from the audience as they come in. Tell the audience, Dr. White, as we looked at that map that was up, how do we get from, to your point and to your conclusion, how do we get there from all of those countries that had those military bases, the United States military bases flanked in their country? And all of those countries did not support the Palestinian people. Every single last one of them, right? Didn't oppose the Zionist barrage in Gaza. How do we get from there to your conclusion of some type of Muslim unity in the region?
Well, first, I think the people of those countries must ask their countries, must ask their leaders, what is the purpose for having these bases surrounding Iran? What do we get from it? I mean, really, they have to ask those questions. Secondly, they have to ask, does it really mean more security, or does it mean real headaches? All right. Thirdly, they must ask themselves, are we really a colonized state or a neo-colonized state with all of these countries, with all these military bases? Apparently, we are a colonized or neo-colonized state. And then the question must be asked, do we really want to be free? Do we really want sovereignty to direct our own governance? And once these questions are given and they begin to be asked by the people, we begin to change. I'm like you, Brother Malik and Brother Arthur. I do not think those bases will ever come back again, because they're found out they're not needed. They don't offer any protection. All right. And Iran has showed the world that a regional power can stand up against the so-called greatest military might in the world and survive, and not only survive, in their own closet.
Well, these small countries were not really countries ever. I mean, they've all been created since 1948. I mean, these are essentially companies coming into the area, establishing a figurehead government, and creating essentially a gas station. Kuwait is a gas station. Bahrain is a gas station. Qatar is a gas station. UAE is a gas station. That's all they are. And I mean, it's essentially just, it's a port. It's a place of extraction, which is classic colonialism anywhere in the world. You build a railroad, you build it to the ocean so that you can extract raw materials from the interior of the country. That's how you drain a system. And that's all that Europe and the US has been doing to this area as well. Of course, the main export and the main resource is petroleum, is oil. So they want the oil, and that's it. Like Donald Trump said, we want your oil. We want that damn oil. And that's been his mission. So
go ahead, Art.
Yeah, but again, these countries are, even though they were established by the oil companies, that in and of itself says these are not any kind of democratic structures or even Islamic structures. From that standpoint, these are charlatans. They are people who have stood against Iran the whole time. That's why they felt they needed to have a U.S. base there to legitimize them and then provide them with the veneer of protection from countries like Iran. They wanted to be protected from real Islam. So I think that Islam has some reflection.
We have a question. There's a sister by the name of Carol Edwards, and she is asking, can the Palestinians have a place to live?
Just live. And I think that the way to put this in context, the Palestinians have a very formidable diaspora since they were chased out of their land in 1948. And this was called the Nakba, where over 750,000 people were pushed from what we now know as Israel, and which was just a day before that Palestine. What that says, Art and Dr. White, is that the news coming back from the diaspora, and also the news even coming back from the the white left in this country, and I use that term left very very loosely. The Young Turks kind of people with Anna Kasparian and people like this who've totally turned on this whole Israeli project. They're saying that after this is said and done, there will be no Israel.
Well, who's going to rebuild Palestine? I mean, they say that it's going to take at least 40 to 60 years to rebuild, and trillions of dollars.
Well, it doesn't need Israel to build it. It doesn't need the West to build it. It doesn't need Europe to build it. All it needs is the people who are there, who have always been there. I mean, you forget that Arabia is a thousands and thousands of years in existence. Persia, the same thing. Turkey, the same thing. They can take care of themselves. What they need to do is eliminate those obstacles to the development and those systems that continue to stagnate and cause the local areas to be essentially encumbered and impinged. The biggest thing that can happen for Palestine is Iran and what's happening right now. Palestinian people now have a chance to call themselves Palestine, number one, and then to move and act as a country and a community as they had prior to 1948 for hundreds and hundreds of years. So that was an African community. That was East Africa. And it was essentially a country that was populated by a large segment of African and Black people. And of course, racially and ethnically, there's been a lot of cleansing and pushing those Africans out, murdering those Africans, disappearing those African people and African influence, as well as in Egypt and Libya and some of the other areas in North area.
And to Art's point, according to several historians of our past, our scholars, that by the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, this is 6th century Arabia, the Hijaz, meaning the Arabian Peninsula, is 35 to 40% African. Okay, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself, African descent. All of his uncles, African descent. We can go on and on with this.
Sure.
He makes his only Hajj. He only made Hajj one time. He, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, makes his Hajj with his hair and cornrows. This isn't Malik Aziz talking. These are historical references in Sahih Hadith. Going back to what we were talking about as the main subject today, and that is the demise of so-called Israel. One of Dr. White, one of the at least one of the largest couched narratives that allows this whole project of Israel to come out of Europe in the first place in 1948 and get signed off by the West is that we're people with nowhere to go. We're victims and all this stuff. So now the whole victim caricature is gone. This is what they literally were standing on. This is what we saw all of those movies in the 1960s and 70s and 80s surrounded about, the Holocaust and all the poor Jewish people. The whole world hates them. The whole world despises their very existence, which means that narrative, which was the biggest narrative that they couched themselves in to make this whole thing work for them, is gone.
Yeah, I mean, the victim, so-called victim, the Israelis have now become the bullies. They have placed the Palestinians into the venue of how they were placed during the Warsaw Ghetto, as being engulfed and having to force their way to fight for freedom. So therefore, the Israelis now are being the bullies, they're being the aggressors, and the world has seen it. There are two questions I want to state that a couple of people asked. I want to give those people who are listening and asking questions. And Brother Kevin asked a question as to where do we go from here? What is the damage? And then you have a brother or sister, Diane, stated that South Africa now has taken in a few Palestinians.
Wrong move.
I think those are legitimate questions that we need to answer and to look at. You brothers.
Well, Palestinians should not have to leave Palestine. And so again, with what is happening now, there's a Gaza, there's a West Bank, but of course we know that those are indoor or outdoor prisons. Gaza is an outdoor prison. It's walled completely around on three sides. And then there's the ocean on the other side, the Mediterranean on the other side. And the so-called West Bank is a joke because the Israelis have slowly moved into that area. The settlers have moved in, and they're just like the military. When they do that, they move into the area. They will shoot and kill people who have property, Palestinians who possess property, take that property, and then use the military to back up them being able to police and stay in that property. That's been happening since 48. But what gave Europeans to the idea, what gave them the idea, what gave them the right to come down to Palestine and take Palestine from the Palestinian people? And this has been the biggest hoax, the latest colonial trick that's been played on the world. I mean, and they look to America and say, well, hey, you guys took the land from the Indians, so you got to support us. You don't have any arguments. You took Africa from the Africans, or you took a lot of Africa from the Africans. So, you need to be on our side and behind this. But the jig is up. The trick is over. It is absolutely it's passé at this point. And so Israel has attacked Iran. Iran is going to punish Israel at the maximum level. Iran says, we will not allow a situation to continue where we're going to have to 6 months from now or a year from now worry about being attacked again. This is a forever solution. So Iran is moving to create that solution, and that solution cannot exist unless there are no U.S. bases in the area, and the biggest base of all is the country of Israel.
And remember, Dr. White, to Diane's question of South Africa, that area that South Africa is, taking in a few Palestinians, and why this is a bad idea. Early on in the genocide, this was the position of the Trump administration and all these white racist talking heads. Why don't Egypt take them in? Egypt said no. Why don't Jordan take them in? Jordan said no, right? And they said no because once the people leave, that's it, right? The Palestinian people have a sovereign right to exist in Palestine. That's their home, okay? The outsiders came in. Dr. White?
Yes, but isn't there a difference between repopulation and refugee status? I mean, what Trump was stating, and some of the Zionists and racist bigots, is repopulating them someplace else. I think Sister Diana is talking about refugee status. I haven't spoken to her, but that's what I kind of get. So isn't that a difference? And if that is a difference, is that what is wrong with refugee status for someone? Not the whole
difference semantics. Okay, and let's look at it locally here. And I'll give you an example. That's a game. That's a game by capitalism. That's a game by the white racists before they take your land. Okay, now we give you refugee status, but they know that the people are not going to come back. Locally, over 23 years ago in 2003 in Chicago, Art, there were these beautiful, there were these raggedy, torn down, underdeserved projects known as Cabrini Greens and the Stateway Gardens, the Henry Horner Homes, Ida B. Wells, that set along in Chicago, along the South Shore, and of course, Cabrini Greens at 800 North State, near walking distance to downtown. The white people wanted that. You know what they did? Through their mayor, Richard Daley, the son, they said, you know what? We're going to give vouchers or refugee status to all the people who live here. We're going to give them vouchers to go, in some cases, 200 miles away to Champaign, Urbana, and all these different places, Danville, Illinois. And then after 2 years, after we rebuild it, we're going to bring you back into a mixed income economy. It never happened, right? Those places are all white right now with the yuppies living in them. It also happened, Dr. White, after Hurricane Katrina.
Exactly. That's where I was going.
Give you vouchers to go to Houston, other parts of Alabama, even as far as Utah. And when the black people
and Orlando,
because of Hurricane Katrina got to Utah, they were like, Mormon country, we're good. Okay, and right now, if you go down to the French Quarter, it's white. All right, they own that place, and those brothers and sisters, way back in 2005, when Hurricane Katrina came through there, they're still in Houston. They're still in parts of Texas,
Arizona, Alaska, far away as Alaska. They sent people from Katrina. So, I mean, they were serious, and they were calling them refugees. You know, exactly. They were relocating them out of New Orleans. New Orleans or Louisiana went from being a blue state to a red state because of Katrina. So, and it has not gone back since because people have not returned. This is exactly what they want in Palestine. And that's why Palestinians, Black people can relate so easily to what the Palestinian people are going through, because we know what we've gone through in this country and continue to go through in this country to this day. So I'm glad we have some ability to communicate back with the people who are viewing and listening to Muslim Street and are asking these questions, and I think it's very healthy dialogue.
One person, Diane, caused a gentrification.
Before you go to that question, I want to ask you a question or to address the crowd. And it's the elephant in the room that nobody's talking about. It's a Black American problem in Israel. That Black American problem in the late 1960s and early 70s, there was a Black American group who called themselves the original African Hebrew Israelites under the leadership of Ben Ami out of Chicago. Okay. Their basis and claim was that they were one of the tribes of Israel, meaning Black Americans, and that they deserved to be living in the state of Israel. So they began to go. They went to a place called Dimona, where actually the Israelis have put their nuclear sites, and the Iranians are bombing them. Now, here's the question, and it's the elephant in the room, Art and Dr. White, and that is that the children, they're now over there in the third generation, are signing up for the Israeli IDF and fighting and murdering and killing Palestinians, Black Americans, who went over there under the guise of we the Jews too.
Well, opportunists will go anywhere. Opportunists will go halfway around the world. And this, you got proof of that. We had African Americans who went to Africa and, went back there, signed up with Joseph Savimbi and fought against the Angolan people and the people of Namibia. You always have people who are willing to take a buck, take $1 and become a police officer in Chicago and go down to the South Side and break some heads. You have these people. They are a reality. They are worldwide, and, systems don't matter in terms of size. But if you're talking about, the religious aspects of coming back to the land of so-called biblical Israel or Canaan, which, the Jews are saying is from one river, the Nile River, all the way to the Euphrates and takes into its borders, Medina, not Mecca, you understand that this is a very serious effort to not only steal land and legacy and culture from two groups of people, African people first, and then the Islamic world in a secondary way. And those people who are caught in the middle are certainly entitled to either make any claim that they want. Black people can make any claim that they want on that area. Black Americans,
yeah,
you know,
but let me jump here a second. I mean,
before you jump in, Dr. White, before you jump in, Dr. White, I want you to answer and address this, and that is, are we supposed to just turn the other way because a group of Black Americans went over there and begged these Jews, these white European Jews, to be part of this illegal, unsanctioned state of Israel, and as such, they are Israeli citizens. As such, they committed to this conscription of fighting for the IDF from the time that which is mandatory conscription at the time they reach 18 years old, and now they're being turned on the Palestinian people and they're gunning down the babies.
Well, they might be mandatory for them. It might be mandatory for them to conscript into the IDF, but it's not mandatory for Orthodox Jews who live in Israel to do the same thing. And so, you know, the people walking around that don't take baths and have the hairy hats on.
Netanyahu's son is right now living in Miami.
Talking about the Black Americans, Dr. White. Are we supposed to turn
let me get to that point. I didn't have a chance to get to that point. Wait a second. All right. When Ben Israel had started moving there, I think the African-American community was still in this mix of searching for identity. All right. 1969, a lot of stuff is going on. All right. Not that I agree with what he showed, but I don't think his intent was wrong. I don't think he intended to duke African Americans into anything like that. So again, he went to West Africa first, and ultimately he went to Dimona. Now, while he was in Dimona, all those years, they were isolated. They were treated as second-class citizens. In 2023, they were going to deport a whole host of them. Then they worked out an agreement with the Israelis to include them into their citizenship, into their body. All right. Do I agree with it? No, because they have aligned with themselves with the Israeli state. Along with that, we also have seen this mix coming from the Falasha Jews that is also migrated there into Israel. All right. And they have aligned with the Zionists. Let me finish, because you asked me, keep asking.
You have very little time.
You're doing a poor job.
But you all talked a long time now. All right. So just let me finish.
Okay.
All right. So therefore, do I agree with what they have done? No, I do not agree with them. I reject this concept of not understanding geopolitics and why they're fighting for a state, all right, that has no love for the Palestinians, no love for the Arabs, and definitely no love for Africans, African Americans, and people who are real Semitics. So, but you got to look at these dynamics that I gave.
You're missing one point, Art, and I'll let you get to it. You're missing one point on that, Dr. White, is they went over there in the first place to integrate with the white Jews, knowing full well that the 67 war had already started, and completed. Okay, we're talking. They knew full well of the geopolitics, that the white man stole that land and were calling themselves Jews, and they
called themselves the original Jews.
Wait, hold on, don't cut me off, bro.
That's what they did.
Rabbi Ben Ali went over there to integrate with white Jews and called them brothers and sisters. That's the problem. They accepted them as not counterfeit converts in 8th century Europe. Ashkenazis, which they are. They accepted them as part of the 12 tribes of Israel, which is a false narrative.
Yeah, you can't join an illegitimate group. If the state of Israel was illegitimate, why would you go and merge yourself into an illegitimate group for legitimacy? It can't be done. So again, this is historic. You know, we certainly got a tradition of doing it. A lot of opportunists around the world, people are going to go where they think that they can get some advantage and make some money. You know, I mean, Jews come from all over the world. If you're Anglo, you're white, you can go there, get a house, you can get a job, you can get a stipend, you can get free education, free medical care, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the attraction.
But those things at the beginning were not extended to the Black Hebrews.
No, they were not extended to.
All right, so that has to be clear.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So what was extended? Their intent. They were over there playing. They put together their bands and stuff so they can go to them white Jews and playing their bar mitzvahs.
We know the game.
I don't
we
think
know the
that
game. And this
Israel
is a game.
supported
This is
Zionism. And I don't believe he did that, Malik. All right, there's no evidence there.
What do you mean there's no evidence? The very fact that they went over there under the assumption.
No, there's no evidence there. You can argue that his intentions were that his move was wrong, but you cannot argue against his intentions, which was trying to develop a Black base in an area that he considered as being legitimately
Black. There's already a Black base there.
The other white, quote unquote, tribes of Israel. What are you talking about? And he did it on somebody else's land and somebody else's false narrative, which was a white supremacist doctrine. Yeah. He knew full well of that.
I don't think there's evidence that Israel
we do have
supported white supremacy or defended Zionism. I don't think it's any evidence.
Well, they went over there to participate in the Zionist project.
They went over there to establish a homeland, which they argued was their right by historical evidence. Birth, yes. Yeah, that's something different.
Yeah, obviously we have a birth. We have
and play them for them play in front of them white bar mitzvahs.
Black people have a birthright to the entire area, the entire West African area, and certainly back. And we can live anywhere we want to. We should be able to do that, but we do not have to concede in that process to an established illegal state and participate in their occupation illegally of land that they should not hold. We have to be careful of who we lay down and who we get in the bed with. And I think Malik is right from the standpoint that these people are.
I think
the original African Hebrew Israelites were under the protection of the Zionist project since they got there.
Well, they should have some protection because of their skin. You know, this is protection.
Killing the baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, we're looking forward here real quickly. What happens to Israel now?
Yeah. Exactly.
If Iran continues to do what they intend to do, and that is to eliminate this problem from ever being a repeat scenario where they get attacked, their supreme leader and all of the families and the grandkids and everybody gets bombed and wiped out on a whim one day by somebody who is claiming to be indigenous to the area, who actually his name is Milkowski and comes from Poland. That was Netanyahu. His real name is Milkowski and has a heritage in Poland. But these people are claiming to be indigenous to the area and are not. So you can take that where you want, but Israel as a state will cease to exist as it should. We should not have an Israeli state anywhere in the world, but particularly in the region that they've claimed in Africa, in Palestine, in the Arab world, in the Arab community, and doing and essentially carrying out all the mischief that they're carrying out on top of that, is just a double insult.
Last word, Dr. White.
I agree with Brother Arthur that if Israel continues to follow this policy, Israel that we know of today will not exist any longer. That's the fact. I agree with you.
You've been listening to the Muslim Street. I hope that you've enjoyed the engagement. We had to do a show and have some representatives from the original Hebrew Israelite organization on, those who are in Dimona, because that's a specific group that literally took advantage of the Zionist project. Now, as we come to the conclusion here, you can listen to the Muslim Street. You can find us at www.themuslimstreet.com. You can also find us across all social media. Great questions today from Sister Carol, Diane, and others. And we want to make this our next session more engaging. We appreciate that. For Professor Vibra Issa White, who's also the author of Blacklisted. You can find that on Amazon. And for Art Mobley, founding member of the National Black Media Coalition and the Darfur 23, I am Malik Aziz of the Muslim Street, and we will see you next week. Assalamu alaikum.